Well, that's weird because you find stuff in the ocean and they take it and people become billionaires, right? They find Russian or Roman ships filled with gold coins.
Right.
And
People have always been interested in Oak Island because it is a strange and interesting place. There is a secret prize for people who can figure out the tough puzzles inside. It's not a secret where the prize is hidden like in some other treasure hunts. You have to figure out how to get to it because it is hidden with clever tricks and layers of mystery. Many well-known and important people in history have tried to find out what's going on at Oak Island, but have also failed. But none of them have worked. On the other hand, podcaster Joe Rogan recently told some shocking facts about Oak Island that will change everything. How did he say it? What does this mean for the next part of the prize hunt? Let's talk about what Joe Rogan learned about Oak Island that shocked everyone. There's a small island in the Atlantic Ocean called Oak Island. Strangers and tourists have been interested in and confused by its secret for hundreds of years. People say that somewhere on the island is a very expensive treasure. People say that it has things from Marie Antoinette, holy things, and even copies of Shakespeare's works. It's also thought to be Captain Kidd's lost wealth. It was said that Captain Kidd was a great pirate who hid his wealth on many islands. A lot of people have spent their whole lives and a lot of money looking for the gold. A large group of smart and dangerous traps are set up around the loot to keep people from getting to it. Though Joe Rogan, the well-known podcast host of The Joe Rogan Experience, has revealed that Oak Island has seen a scary discovery. Everyone in the world is shocked by this. The secret of the island has become darker since Rogan made it public. But first, let's see what's going on. The year was 1795, and Daniel McGinnis was on Oak Island with some friends. This is where the story of Oak Island began. He saw a round hole in the ground that looked very strange. He decided to look into it because he had heard interesting stories about secret wealth. He and his friends dug and found a layer of cobblestones 2 feet below the surface right away. They thought they had found a tip, so they dug deeper to try to find the treasure. However, they found something else that didn't make sense as they looked further. The hole they were digging looked like it had been dug with old tools. The hole in front of them had clearly been dug and filled by someone, but who and why? Oak Island was so far away and by itself that no one seemed to have dug such a deep and difficult pit. They wouldn't have put something very valuable at the bottom unless they did. Then the search for Captain Kidd's lost treasure began, but they didn't find anything even though they dug a hole 10 meters deep and as wide as 3 stories. They gave up because they were short on time, tools, and people to dig any further. The big hole in the ground they left behind was called the Money Pit. Someone else came to Oak Island 10 years later to continue the search that Daniel and his friends had started. When the Money Pit was found, people from all over the world came to try to get rich. There was a lot of talk and attention about it, but they didn't know that the wealth was hidden by a system of smart, dangerous traps that were meant to keep people from getting there. They also didn't know that they were about to find something shocking that would change everything. The look for the Onslow Company, one of the first and best-known groups to visit Oak Island in 1806, was the Onslow Company, a group of miners with pickaxes and shovels. They were determined to get the prize that Daniel and his friends had missed. The hole, which was called the Money Pit, was dug up again by the Onslow Company. Once they dug down 10 feet, they found more layers of oak logs and other strange things like glue, charcoal, and coconut fiber. That something was buried there had to have been hidden by someone who worked hard to do so. Because the Onslow Company was interested in these finds, they dug even deeper. After going about 90 feet, they finally hit something strong. There was a terrible event when they took out a stone tablet with writing on it. They thought they had finally found the wealth. When the cave filled with water and spread out around them, they had to run for their lives. The Onslow Company tried to keep the water out, but they failed. They had no idea who set this clever trap or why it worked. They knew they couldn't search because the tube would flood every time the tide went up. They decided to stop looking. They took the stone tablet with them when they left the island because they thought it was an important find, even though they didn't find any treasure. What the stone tablet's secret is. After the Onslow Company left, the stone tablet remained a mystery for a long time. It had strange carvings on it that no one could figure out until a professor from Halifax did. He dropped a big clue about where the treasure was hidden. The stone said, 40 feet below 2 million pounds buried. This meant that the money was still nearby, but someone had to cross the water. It was still a secret how rich Oak Island was. 7 people had to die before the real wealth could be found, so the story goes. 6 people have already died while looking for the rare prize. Certain people didn't believe this story, but they still tried to find the money. What people think and believe. A lot of stories and thoughts were shared about what Oak Island might hide. Some people thought that the island had the lost papers and money of William Shakespeare, or maybe Francis Bacon. People say that Shakespeare was a member of a secret group that kept their secrets on an island. Some people thought that Marie Antoinette hid her jewels and money there with the help of a Freemason who worked in the French Navy during the French Revolution. If both stories were true, Oak Island would be very rich. Famous pirates like Captain Kidd or Captain Blackbeard were thought to have hidden the treasure by some ships. This was because pirates were known to do this on faraway islands. There was also the thought of Freemasons. It said that shapes on the island, like a stone cross and a triangle, led to a secret society's hidden wealth that had something to do with the Holy Grail and the Knights Templar. The plan of the Toronto Company. Some people from Toronto came to Oak Island in 1849, though, determined to find the money that had been lost for 50 years. They knew what the Onslow Company had found and were eager to find out what was going on. They tried to dig up the holes that had already been made, but the holes filled back up with water, so they had to stop. The Toronto team, on the other hand, noticed something strange. The water was a little salty and seemed to move with the tide. This tip helped us find the money pit a lot. We learned more about the puzzle on Joe Rogan's show. He said that some of them have been driven by an evil goal. Rogan said that the money pit is not a place to find wealth, but a trap set to kill people who are looking for gold. A scary touch came from the fact that he talked about how many people had died trying to find this elusive prize and how the island is said to be cursed in the past. Rogan says that people think the people who hid the money were very smart because they thought of a way to keep everyone from getting to it. People say the obstacles and danger traps are very hard to get around. What Rogan said, though, is that it's also possible that the people who hid the money did something wrong. One of the most interesting things about the story, he said, is that the island has changed hands several times because the wealth is thought to be so valuable. This suggests that there is a power fight going on behind the scenes. People who work in media and culture have also been pulled to Oak Island. A lot of TV shows and books have been written about the search for wealth. People watch a lot of TV, and the Curse of Oak Island on the History Channel has been on for a long time. People on a trip are eager to find the treasure and figure out the puzzle. Since it began in 2014, more than 1 million people have watched it every week. The show is mostly about Rick and Marty Lagina. Since they were kids, they've been interested in Oak Island. In 1965, they read an article in Reader's Digest that got them interested in the prize and the work of people who had already tried to find it. Rick became interested in the subject after reading the story. He hoped to one day visit the island and look for the money. He persuaded his rich brother Marty, an engineer and businessman, to join him on the journey. They bought a full acre on the island together in 2006. It has cost the Lagina boys a lot of time, money, and energy to look for wealth. To dig further and bigger than ever before, they use the newest equipment and tools. Plus, they've asked professionals and students from a lot of different fields to help them study. These fields include engineering, archaeology, geology, history, and more. Along the way, they found some amazing things, like fake coins, broken pottery, human bones, and even a pretty brooch with a big diamond. No matter how much the Lagina brothers have tried, they still haven't found the prize they've been after since they were kids. It makes you wonder if the prize was ever real. Some people call Oak Island Hoax Island because none of the things that people say they found there are true. The history of Oak Island is thought to be different by many. Before the early 1860s, no one who dug on the island found anything useful. That's when the first digging was seen. It was done by some local boys and a business called Onslow. Most of the stories we hear about digs early or late come from people who said they took part in or saw them. A stone with writing on it was said to have been found 90 feet below the ground in the 1800s. This is one of the most puzzling parts of the Oak Island story. A lot of people think this stone is real and holds a message about the loot, but no one is sure. According to records, the stone wasn't found until 1862. It wasn't even in the Oak Island Treasure Company's investment prospectus from 1893, which had a list of everything known about the island. The stone and its marks were never drawn or photographed. A sketch made in 1949 from a translation that might not be accurate is the only picture of it. People have different ideas about the curse that is said to affect the island and its wealth hunters. Christina Downs, Ph.D., who is the senior editor for the Journal of Folklore Research at Indiana University, says that people who are looking for fortunes shouldn't believe these things. She says that curses and hard-to-understand codes are often made up to give claims that haven't been proven more weight and mystery. Joe Rogan has said that he doesn't think the wealth on Oak Island is real. The Lagina brothers own a large part of the island and are the stars of a reality TV show about their search. After 10 seasons and millions of dollars, they still haven't found anything solid. This has puzzled him. He has said that the wealth could be a story, a scam, or an impossible search. Still, there are some things we don't know about the truth about Oak Island. Geologist Gordon Fader and historian Joy A. Steele found evidence that Oak Island was home to a hidden British industry center. They found that in 1720, the Crown let private companies and British troops work together on Oak Island to help pay off bills. This was based on business records and letters from the time. It was okay for these businesses to make things like pine tar, metal, and wire. The British used the money pit, a natural feature on the island, to make pine tar and pitch for covering their ships. Steele and Fader are sure of this. As Fader puts it, there were a million reasons to go to Oak Island. Closest to fresh water, closest to shore, safe, good anchorage. It's the biggest island in the bay. Fader also says that the charcoal, putty, and wood that have been dug up from the money pit are like what you would find in an old tar kiln. The U-shaped building that was buried on Smith's Cove might have been part of a storage shed where the pine tar could be kept out of the sun in barrels. Pine tar was important back then, just like oil is now. Your ship wouldn't go out to sea until it was covered in pine tar. On the island, they did that. He says, that theory fits everything we see to a T. A man-made money pit is also not a good idea because of the way the land is formed. Fader says that the sea and water table can sometimes make the floor of the island break. A karst system is formed, which is made up of cracks and caves in the ground. This system can fall and make sinkholes. Fader mapped out what was below the ground along the coast of Nova Scotia for the Canadian government as a marine scientist. He says there are a lot of sinkholes in the area. On Oak Island, at least 2 sinkholes have been found. On the shore next to Oak Island, there are many more. Based on what he has seen in Oak Island over the past 25 years, geoscientist Stephen Aitken, Ph.D., thinks that the money pit is probably a cave. Aitken agrees with Fader that the ground under that part of the island has broken down, making a karst system. In this system, some of the caves have collapsed, making holes like the money pit. That part of Oak Island naturally floods the money pit because fresh water comes from the sands below the island. The story says this is proof of a trap. Charles Barkhouse has been working on the Oak Island search for more than 20 years. He is a treasure hunter and scholar. Complex thoughts and answers that make sense don't have to be at odds with each other in his mind. He says that the fact that the island's rocks washed the wealth underground makes the secret even more strange. There is evidence on the island that the treasure is very important, because many groups have worked with it over the years. She says, "Everywhere you walk on that island, you're walking through history." There are several ways to explain what has been found. That's why this place is so weird. Oak Island is known for its real wealth, like the Holy Grail, the Ark of the Covenant, or a huge pirate bank. Everything else there is less important. The hunt might go on forever. In 1862, a famous treasure hunter said that wanting money could be worth the problem. A lot of treasure hunters would be making holes in the ground for no reason if it turned out that the wealth never existed. It would be the funniest joke in history. Thank you for seeing.